So I have been spending probably the last 10 days naming my characters. And I just spent about 10 minutes unpacking what that experience has been like and why I was doing it and what it's being, what's coming forth. And apparently I didn't hit record. And instead of crying about it, I decided to re-record this blog audio diary again. So naming. As I'm naming these characters, it has been a phenomenally exciting and interesting and inspiring process. And some of my characters were already coming to life because of art. The art was being formed in my head, like what they looked like, what their relationships were like, what their essence is like, and capturing their essence in their physical features, but also in what shows through. Like, you see the most beautiful sketches or photographs. It's a moment captured, but it's one moment, but it's everything at the same time. Like you see, it's like when you capture someone in mid laugh or an embrace, and it's not like that all like the whole thing. It could have been like a family photograph and then everybody disperses and it was like that one moment they got where everyone was laughing, and then after that, like they go back to their daily lives, or they're kind of arguing about something, or like, oh, let's go eat, I'm hungry, like whatever. And so but that moment is captured in the art. And also, the naming process for me has even furthered that exploration of these characters. And so, some of them actually even started with a name. I wanted a character with that name, and I didn't know why. It was something caught me about the meaning of it, or the cadence and the sound. And it's so important to me. And I think so important when I'm reading it in my mind or aloud, that names sound, they resonate with a sound that adds to the meaning of it, at least for me. I mean, we all add our own meaning to everything, of course. And so that's been a really interesting exploration too. But, a lot of the characters are named, from mythology all around the world, legends, folklore, words that mean something just in the English language or another language, names that have specific meanings according to their roles or their essence, or and really interestingly enough is that thinking about my own name, Carla, I actually never really thought about that name as being a beautiful name. And what is beauty, right? It's all in the eye of the beholder, or in the ears of the listener, or you know the art critic, I guess, or I don't know, whatever. It's all in the beholders, their perception and their experience and what they bring to it, right? So I never really thought that names or my name was beautiful until I guess would have been probably about 10 months ago. And I was picking up my daughter from a tea that she was having. I was meeting her downtown. She was having tea with a friend of hers that had moved away, and she came to visit. And she brought another friend. Well, there was another friend there that she was with, in town with, and we'd never met her before. So this friend of a friend said, "Your name's Carla," and I said, "Yeah." And she said, I've always loved that name, Carla." And I thought, "You did?" I've never thought of my name as being a beautiful name. I think it means something like strong woman, and I thought that was cool. And I of course I think that's cool, but I never really thought of it as a beautiful name. And from that moment on, I'm thinking, I love my name. That's a beautiful name. And yeah, and so it took this 21-year-old young woman, because there are teachers of all ages in our lives, all ages, to show me the beauty of my own name. And the significance of naming is profound. And I don't just mean when you want to write a decent story that sounds, it's kind of like a fun ride. I mean, when you are pulling together, crafting the meaning, and also you craft it, but also let it go so that it grows into all this other meaning that you didn't even necessarily intend, but it was a possibility just from you, from what you presented, from what you created. Okay, so with every reader, there's a new reading, there's a new connection between thoughts, ideas, and again, meaning. So as I so I'm thinking also about how this concept of meaning and the importance, or sorry, naming, and the importance of naming is important to the character, and for me, the character development. So some of the characters are named for different, like I said, mythologies and tradition in varying traditions all over the world. I didn't choose one, and I didn't make one up. I pulled and wove together things that became just came to my awareness, and they landed like, that is definitely this person. That name is theirs. Like they are that person, that name. And some of them are ironic, right? Like, or some of them grow out of their name or into their name. Some of them are almost cursed by their name, by their names, because of the role or expectation placed on them from the generation before, the parent, or unwittingly or wittingly, actually, might have been actually purposeful to not necessarily the name, but the upbringing of that child, in that family. But there are traditions all over the world about that revere this naming process, that see it as sacred, and we call people's names, we identify with them. And I'm thinking about Rothfuss, Patrick Rothfuss, actually, and one of his books is actually called The Name of the Wind, and he explores this idea in his books, and a lot of other writers do too. But I think he's a really great example of the importance of naming. And in his books, from how I interpret this, is that it's not that. So some of the characters know, it's almost like a magic and alchemy, like a otherworldly, or not otherworldly, but a super sensory ability to know something's name and be able to call it. And so there's certain characters in the book that are able to do that. And what happens is that they can, well, the name carries the actual essence of that which is named. And so if you know the name and you can call it, it's not that you control it, but you become almost like one with it. And it's not something that is known or intellectualized. It's felt. It is a being. It is a state of being. Not even a state of being. Yeah. So it's so that exploration echoes in my mind as well while I'm naming these characters. And then some of them are perfectly named, like I'm like, yep. And then some of them are just like, that's close to what the meaning is that I want for this character. But it's just sounds good. I just like the name. And I just like it. It's like, yeah, that person is that name. So it's not always hyper serious, and it's not, but sometimes it is. And then even when it is, there's growth and there's change and there's assigning our own meaning, and there's this not a fated destination that their name will lead them to. Like, it's not like, oh, that person is only in that particular box because they're named this name. But it is an essence as well as a starting point, as well as just one point of identification, one aspect, and complex of this complex person, this complex being, so Yeah, and when we're spelling, it's like part of the spell casting, right? This notion of spell casting through words that we can create or add to the meaning of this character, the felt, bringing them to life, right? The naming process when a baby's named is really at that moment you're saying you have arrived. You have arrived not just as a being, but you, a particular being. Your name is XYZ. So my characters have been arriving. They've been going through not a literal, but yes, actually literal as well as literary birth. They're coming to life. And part of breathing them into life is to not just writing their stories, but naming them. So it's been really fun. And I know I had more to say about that. And I said things a little bit more eloquently in my previous recording, but I hope I captured most of what I wanted to say about that.